Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We are joined today by Alan Saunders. We give our stars and skulls grades after the Steelers' big win over the Bengals. But before we do that, are the Steelers really Super Bowl contenders with Russell Wilson right now? They've been closer than ever before to being in that conversation, and we broach it here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's going to be a big episode here today because, as I said before, we are joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders. Alan, whoa, you can't do that. That's a 15-yard penalty. You can't do the finger guns at the screen. What are you doing?
No, Chris, you can point. You can't do the other thing. You can point. Pointing. You can point all day.
Thinking about
that
all day.
You can point all day. You can point. You can point them. You just can't shoot them. You can't shoot them. You can point them.
I've been thinking about this joke since
these fingers are not loaded. Okay, so you can point them as long as they're unloaded. You start shooting the fingers.
As always, we love to have Alan Saunders on. He's from SteelersNow.com. Alan, let's cut to the chase here. The Steelers are now averaging 28.6 points per game when Russell Wilson starts. On the year right now, their offense has scored 24.7 points per game. That is just ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs, and notwithstanding, Monday Night Football and anything that might change, that is right at the edge of the top 10 in the NFL. That they are a top 10 offense, officially in scoring. Say whatever you want about how they're getting there, what you think about Russell Wilson. This is what they are right now. They put up a lot of points against the Bengals. Yes, they're a bad defense, but that's still a team that when the Chiefs beat them, the Chiefs were great for doing so. When the Ravens swept them, the Ravens were great for doing so. And now the Steelers are 9-3. If they beat the Ravens again and win one other game this season, that alone would clinch the division. They have played very well. They've beaten several really good teams this year, teams at least that are high up in their win totals. We are recording this in the middle of Monday Night Football, so we don't know what the Browns' record is right now or the Broncos or anything like that. But right now, has Russell Wilson, in your eyes, buy or sell, made the Steelers real Super Bowl contenders?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you call real contenders. They're not a favorite. They're not one of the top 3 or 4 teams. But, I think it's to the point where, okay, if no matter how big of a Steeler fan you are, okay, in your heart of hearts, when the Steelers went into Buffalo last year, you can maybe talk yourself into saying, oh, okay, they've been running the ball well, things are going all right, they could win this one, but you knew they weren't winning 4 in a row, they just wasn't happening. Okay, you
were hoping for one right. Crazy upset.
Yeah, right. You're hoping for an upset. Maybe you get lucky and somebody else beats Kansas City. You draw a favorable matchup. You could win another game, but that was just a
pipe dream.
The most you could even think about happening. I think it has gone from inconceivable to conceivable. I'm not saying it's likely, but it does not take a lot to imagine a scenario playing out that gets the Steelers to the Super Bowl. It's not impossible.
So when I think Super Bowl contender, I do not mean they are the betting favorites or they should be the top team. When I say a contender, that means of the teams that I think stand the best chance to make the play to make the Super Bowl for your conference. are you right up there banging with those teams? Are you as competitive as those teams? And when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, I think the Steelers can bang with that team. We know they can bang with the Ravens. The Bills, I think, could be a unique situation because they are playing some really special football right now. Josh Allen has been a complete monster. I think that he has made himself at the head of the MVP conversation so far. But again, when I look at what the Steelers are doing, I have a hard time saying that they shouldn't be in that upper tier of teams in the AFC right now with the way that they've played through 12 games.
I think there's a pretty significant drop from Buffalo to Kansas City and then from Kansas City to everyone else. But I think I like the Steelers better than anyone in that everybody else group. And I think most of me giving Kansas City that credit is not about how they're playing right now. It's just about how I know they can play. And look, it's really hard to win the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. You're going to sleepwalk through some games in the regular season. I think there's a Kansas City that we have not necessarily seen yet lurking that may come out in playoff time. Maybe not. But we'll see. But like right now, I'm looking at the Super Bowl odds today, like Buffalo plus 500, Kansas City plus 550. I think those are very fair. Baltimore plus 1,000, Pittsburgh plus 2,400. See, to me, I think those teams are a lot closer together, and honestly, I would rather be where Pittsburgh is right now than where Baltimore is, and certainly not more than 2 times the other direction.
Yeah, that's another thing I'm looking at here is that saying that, like, I think the Steelers – the other thing is that the Steelers right now, as they hold the inside track on the Ravens. Like, the Ravens now have to hope that the Steelers slip up, and the Ravens have to close out, and they do not have exactly – an easy road the rest of the way. Sure, they after their bye next week, they get the Giants, but then they have to play the Steelers again. They have to play the Texans again, and they have to play the Browns again. And I don't know what the Browns are going to do as they finish this game, but they're competing with the Broncos, and the Browns already beat the Ravens earlier this year. That's not an easy road for the Ravens to make for themselves. So if I'm looking at this, I'm like, yeah, the Steelers have an inside track, and if the Steelers get to play at least one home game, and let's say that they beat the Chiefs, let's say that they take the 2 seed off of the Chiefs, and the Bills go and be the 1 seed at the end of this year. Not only do you get one home game, you probably get 2. You guarantee yourself 2 home games if you win that first one, and so that I think puts you in that conversation to be a real contender. And so I'd say Russell Wilson's put them in this situation. And this is the thing that you and I were saying months ago when this was the question, Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, was he was going to make different parts of this offense relevant that Justin Fields just wasn't able to yet because that's not in his skill set as far as distributing the football left and right and all around. And that's what he did to the Bengals defense in this game. And when the Steelers do that, it's going to make it very hard for teams to just focus on George Pickens or just focus on Pat Freiermuth or just focus on Najee Harris, because after that second one that you've just focused on, you get Calvin Austin sprinting to the end zone for a 29-yard touchdown.
I like your mention of Pat Freiermuth there because I think that was the one thing that maybe we hadn't seen yet that we did see in this game. Like a lot of what happened against the Bengals was just the Steelers doing all of the other things. They had games where Najee Harris was very effective running the ball. They had games, but they had also had games where he wasn't. They had games where they were pretty good in the red zone, and they had games where they weren't. They had games where they got off to a slow start and games got off to a fast start. And this one, they hit all those things that they had done before, and then they added the involvement of Pat Freiermuth, who I think a lot of people have been sort of missing as a piece of this offense. And so, yeah, I mean, I think they should be feeling good about their offense. Like, that's about as good as I could possibly imagine this offense playing against Cincinnati last week. They were really the only thing that slowed them down was themselves. Was Pickens' penalty and some Tomlin clock management and a Boswell blocked field goal, and they could have had 10, 13 more points. And so, like, I just think that's a pretty impressive offensive performance, and I think it should give credence to the idea that they can win in a shootout. We haven't really seen a Steelers team, even since maybe since Ben Roethlisberger pre-elbow injury, where you really felt like if they got into a shootout in a playoff-like game, that they can go toe-to-toe with somebody, and I think they proved that they can do that this week.
They prove, and again, that's the big thing about being a contender for me. It's not just that you can win your way and look good in doing so. It's that you can win your way and you can win other ways. And the Steelers have now shown they can win the rock fight, but now they can also win the shootout. And if you can do both, it gives you a chance to be able to counter different paces of different games, and it makes it so that teams can't just try to play one way to take you out of your momentum. I mean, you put this offense with the Steelers last year in that Bills game. Not saying that they win that game, but they stand a much better chance of fighting back against them. They put up points, and all of a sudden, now there's more pressure on Josh Allen to have to keep scoring points throughout the game. So, again, I think it makes them Super Bowl contenders. I think in your book, you're saying like, hey, I'm not saying that they're my favorites, but they're right in the mix of the teams that should be in that conversation, and maybe the third. I guess you're saying third after the Chiefs and the Bills.
Yeah, I think so. I think I got to give credit to Kansas City's experience coaching, and the playoff environment, and Kansas City is real as well. And so, yeah, I like the Chiefs' chances better than maybe a team that does not have their history, that has put down their. If that was the Colts running out with that 11-1 record and those underlying stats, I might be a little bit more skeptical than I am when it's Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce doing that.
No, agreed entirely. We got to get to our stars and skulls grades for the Steelers win over the Bengals. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. The Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps or Prize Picks, you just play against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. Prize Picks is the fun new daily fantasy game that everyone needs to start playing right now. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with any injury insurance policy. Your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. Your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Pick keeps your lineup alive. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You could double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And right now on Prize Picks, you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as making 4 correct picks. Prize Picks includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, and so much more. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up today to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play just $5. That's code LockedOnNFL to receive a $50 bonus for just playing $5. Prize Picks. Run your game. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders. There's your 15-yard penalty, mister. Don't you do that again. I'm playing.
It's the point. It's the point. Points are legal. Like Josh Allen over here.
It's funny to me.
Okay? It's the point.
Anyways, let's get into our stars and skulls grades. As always, we grade the Steelers after every performance. I want to offer the same thing that I offered last week. Last week, I was traveling back from White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. This week, I was traveling back from Cincinnati, which was actually a much more pleasant trip. So these are a very rough grade. These are going to be amenable to changes once I do more of my all 22 study. But as always, stars and skulls. Stars are good. Skulls are bad. The more stars, the better. The more skulls, the worse. 3 skulls for elite performances. 3 stars for elite performances. 3 skulls for an all-time terrible performance. And Alan, there are some people who really want me to put someone's head on a platter this week. And his name is Joey Porter Jr. And upon review, I have this to say. He does not get a bus ticket for his play, nor can I give him 3 skulls.
Ooh.
I do give him 2, and that's where we'll start with this one. I also give 2 skulls to Patrick Queen. I thought he got torched in the passing game in this one. I don't think either of these players lacked poor effort. I think that they were picked on by a talented offense, but when you're picked on by a talented offense enough, it yields enough big plays, you get called upon in the skulls department here. Now, the reason I do this for Joey Porter Jr., and partially it's because when I asked Mike Tomlin, hey, what does he have to do better here? And he acknowledges, like, look, these guys are looking to bully you. They're looking to push off on you, and you can't let them do that because then they'll get comfortable and then they'll get the space they wanted. And I do think that there were some of the calls that went against Joey Porter Jr. that I thought were bogus. I thought that if it was the other way around, they might have let it go because that person shoved George Pickens to the ground. However, there were 6 penalties on Joey Porter Jr. and they were crucial. Now, when I looked back at it and I looked at Pro Football Focus's coverage numbers, officially, what's crazy is I thought that, not only that, but he got torched for big plays. Well, he really only gave up, outside of the penalties, only 19 receiving yards on 2 catches. It was just that he tacked on 6 penalties with it. And so I give him a 2 skull grade here. Patrick Queen also officially 10 of 10 targets, 10 receptions for 141 yards. That was kind of rough on his ledger there. But Alan, am I being too lenient? You pushed me for being too hard on Joey Porter Jr. for him. Am I being too lenient this time on it?
No, I think this is pretty fair. I did not like the DPI in the end zone against T. Higgins. I did not like the DPI on the sideline. Maybe that was an illegal contact on the Bengals sideline against Higgins. I thought those were 2 really ticky-tack calls, and those were like 4 and 6. The illegal contact where he got 2 on the same play before the DPI, I thought that one was legit. But look, if you're Joey Porter Jr. and you got T. Higgins in a whole lot of space and you want to chuck 10 yards downfield on every play and just say they ain't going to call it that often, if they do, it's only 5 yards. I kind of can live with that as a strategy. Like the whole point of the way the Steelers were playing was to put Joey on T and give him no help and say, good luck, sir. We are going to put 2 guys on Jamar Chase. Thank you very much. You have to figure this out over here. And if the figuring it out involved bringing a couple eggs to make that omelet, I don't hate that strategy. The one I really, though, when he tackled Yoshivas in the end zone, first of all, that's Andre Yoshivas. He ain't making that catch. You could argue it was uncatchable, but the play was dumb. It was just such a dumb play that I don't want to give him credit for I understand throwing the flag and it's just and he got beat. The reason he tackled him is because he got torched and then he was chasing with his head down. And you're Joey Porter. You shouldn't be getting torched by the guy from Princeton. So I thought that was a bad play. It was bad defense, and then he doubled down the bad defense by a dumb penalty that cost his team. The other ones, I didn't like a couple of the calls, and I can kind of live with the strategy where the Steelers kind of were understanding they were putting Joey in a bad spot, and he had to hang on, then so be it.
And that was the thing that really looked like that was the case there. Also, it looks like the Broncos may have ended this game here against the Browns.
I will say I think I might add Minkah Fitzpatrick to this list. I don't know if you have him in the 1 skull.
So that was my next discussion, because as you see in the topics thing over in that direction, I have to learn how to point on. So, yeah, we do have the whole secondary here. So that was where I was going to get to next. I had Minkah as a 1 skull because he missed that tackle in space. I haven't been able to look over the full 22 perspective and sky look to see how this came about or anything like that. But I didn't look. But when I was thinking back to the game, I couldn't think of too many times where I thought, man, that was Minkah's play to make, and he didn't make it in the passing game. I thought they did I thought the Bengals did what everyone else does. They avoided him for the most part. But there was that one long run where he just took a really bad angle. He needed to be a lot better than that. That was my main plug on him. But again, I still have to look back and go through everything to see where he was attacked a whole lot more.
Yeah, I didn't talk to anyone about this, so I don't have it for sure. But I'm pretty sure that that was cover 2 in the end zone on the Jamar Chase touchdown, and that Dante Jackson was thinking that he was passing to Minkah Fitzpatrick, who charged upfield to go after Joe Burrow instead and left Chase wide open in the back of the end zone. So I'm not 100% sure that was his guy, but that's what it looked like to me, that was cover 2 and Jackson was right to pass off, and Minkah didn't see that he was coming into his zone behind him. So if you want to count, to me, if that's a touchdown against, and that's a big play against, and I didn't think there was a lot bad outside of that, but there wasn't necessarily like anything that wowed me enough to maybe take a skull away. I think I would probably give Minkah 2.
So that's one thing I looked at that back at that play. I didn't look at to see what the overall construction of the defense was there because part of me also is like, how many times have we seen a quarterback squirt through the Steelers defense to get a big play? So
happened a bunch.
And that's the thing. So if you're Minkah Fitzpatrick, you're thinking, I gotta go help, and then it just turns out, whoops, I helped at the wrong time. There was space there. So with that being said, let's get to our one skulls because we went with Joey Porter Jr. Upon further review, I might go back. I still have to actually do back the look, but I put here all the other my one skullers: Demonte KZ, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott, Larry Ogunjobi. I thought Ogunjobi needed to do better in this game again, but just in general, the secondary, they just looked just getting caught off guard with certain spots here. Now, again, and I pointed this out after the game, Alan, I'm not crushing this secondary and saying, man, they're a bunch of frauds because they gave up these kind of points to the Bengals, because these Bengals have been putting up a lot of points on everybody. But I do think there's some kudos that needs to go to none of the Bengals receivers destroyed them in this game. Chase had 86. Higgins had 69. Gesicki had 53. Iosivas had 30 for 35. Like this was not somebody that picked it. This was not somebody destroyed you because you were just terrible in coverage. But it was like what the Steelers did to the Bengals. They used enough of their weapons to move the ball when they really wanted to at several points throughout the game. The biggest difference was the Steelers' defensive front made the difference with, two sack strip fumbles and a tip pass that one of the guys in the secondary was able to intercept.
Yeah, I thought they did for the second week in a row. I thought they let Burrow get out of the pocket and make plays, and that's what really hurt them. That they covered it up pretty well initially, and most of the big plays for Cincinnati were kind of second effort plays from Burrow. And it's really weird because I thought they were really good at that against Daniels and Jackson, who are elite rushing threats. And they, maybe it's just because they gave more credit to Burrow's passing ability. They wanted more guys farther downfield or whatever, but I didn't think they did as good of a job in contain, and I thought that really hurt them. I mean, that's a tough matchup. They score a lot of points, so I don't see systematic problems. I just see some stuff happening in a really good offense, and also like some of those numbers coming that last drive, the Steelers were playing way off. Like
they were. They were playing prevent defense.
I think you could criticize Terrell Austin and say, like, hey man, that game was not over. You probably should have played some real defense, but I'm not going to criticize the players when they're in like super soft zone for giving up completions in front of them. Like that's what that defense is designed to do.
Yeah, no, I definitely thought that they could have amped up a few more things towards the end there. Because what was funny was, and you and I were posting videos of it, the Bengals fans, they were firing up the Escalooser as they were filing out of the stadium with early in the fourth quarter after Peyton Wilson's scoop and score touchdown. But I was sitting there saying, like, this isn't over yet. Like if the Bengals get a score here, this is right. And sure enough, they got a score. They got back-to-back touchdowns at the end of the fourth quarter. It was just that the Steelers were able to possess the ball and not give them the ball back at the end, which, good for them because that's what they weren't able to do against the Browns last week. So there's something to say about that. But to your point, I'm not going to destroy the Steelers secondary over not limiting the Bengals because they've been doing that to everybody. I think it's also telling that Mike Tomlin, told his team and prepared his team to say, hey, this is going to be a shootout. So when you're in a shootout, what do? You try to make splash plays. The defense created 3 turnovers. The offense created their own splash plays. That's how you overcome a team that plays the way the Bengals do. And again, that's a very different style than when you're playing a team like the Chargers or the Broncos or the Ravens or the Eagles, maybe, which come up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I think I still feel very good about this defense. I don't think that this is a kind of a result that should make you worry going forward.
I agree there. We're going to get to the stars. As always, we start with the skulls but it's a good week. So we're going to get to the stars because there's a lot of stars to hand out when you put up 44 points in a game. We'll discuss all those stars in a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, to remind you, the show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. The Steelers early odds against the Browns, and this is before the conclusion officially of this Browns-Broncos game. But as it is, they moved the Steelers up before this game to 6.5-point favorites at home over the Browns, with the Steelers money line sitting at minus 300, the Browns money line sitting at plus 240. The over-under there is sitting at 41.5 points. Will you bet on the Steelers to get their revenge against the Browns? Do so at FanDuel.com if you're going to bet on it. You can also, when you go to FanDuel.com, you can also bet on the NBA, the NHL, college sports, conference championships are underway, big fights, big matches in tennis and other sports. All those places can be bet on when it comes to FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. And right now, if you're a new customer, you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first bet of $5 or more today. That's $150 in free bets today to new customers if you hit on just a $5 bet or more when you go to FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com today to download America's number one sportsbook. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, and my goodness, Jameis Winston just threw an interception in the red zone. Broncos are going to win that game. Yeah, so we're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Alan, let's get to our stars here. We're going to work our way up from 1 to 3 stars. We have a lot, and I'm not going to make you guess. We might make you guess when we get to 3 stars because that's always fun. But anyways, let's go to our 1 stars here. I got Keanu Benton, Dante Jackson, George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Michael Pruitt, Peyton Wilson, Dante Jackson. I put Dante Jackson here twice. Cameron Sutton, and Chris Boswell. I know there's one name here that's going to tick a lot of people off that I put him here, and it's George Pickens, because everyone's going to be mad about his penalties. But to be honest, Alan, if it wasn't for those penalties, he would have had a 2-star grade because he was cooking them dudes. That deep pass catch he had down the sideline, the other, one of the other big first downs he had, the touchdown he had several big plays in this game, and he was also being a major decoy to open up other guys. Again, the penalties cost him a star, but he still gave us a very positive performance for the Steelers in this one.
Yeah, it probably could have gone neutral. I agree with the general premise there. And I'll be honest, like the taunting one he earned.
Yeah, the hand of the football, that you can't do that. That's stupid.
I mean, that's well known. And the finger gun thing, if there was any other Steelers player, I would just completely dismiss it as like, that's a silly rule and I don't really care. I think the only reason it draws attention is because George has made it pretty clear that he has a hard time, coloring within the lines. And so then it like contributes to a pattern of behavior, and it's not just an isolated thing. I remember a couple of years ago, a bunch of the Steelers got fined for doing their little duck hunt thing on the sideline, and they didn't get a penalty, but they could get fined for it, and like nobody cared. Like I just, it is what it is. I think the taunt though was you can't do that. And so I would have been fine with neutral. I think I'm okay with 1 star too. But yeah, I mean, he was a good player in this game.
So just other quick looks here. I thought Benton, was getting got better. It was better in this game than he was against the Browns.
Yeah, a nice sack.
Yeah, he did. Van Jefferson, I'll tell you, man, that catch that he had where he was able to beat his man to the inside, that's the play that I was always wondering, hey, when they call upon him to just win on one-on-one, can you do it? He did it, and he got a big play out of it. Maybe should have scored. I don't know. But looking at the angles, I was like, ooh.
Russ was kind of suggesting in the postgame that he thought he could have scored anyway.
So there's there. Dante Jackson, I actually looked back at it when I was looking at the coverage numbers here. Man only gave up 2 catches for 19 yards. So I can't be too mad at him. One of them was a touchdown. But getting that interception on the tip pass, pretty good day for him. I gave him 1 star here because of the touchdown, but I liked what I saw there in general. Also, Michael Pruitt being another one of those guys just to chip in the small ways. Cameron Sutton took the snaps over Beanie Bishop in this game, and wasn't a shutdown player, but also did not get picked on. Only allowed 4 catches for 15 yards. It's a lot of underneath stuff. He also had 2 passes that he basically made incomplete.
Yeah, I thought Sutton was good, and I thought he was necessary for when they moved Chase into the slot. I think that was the big the big reason that he was in there. I don't think you're going to see Beanie Bishop not getting any snaps going forward or anything like that, but I think for that particular matchup, like that dude's not a regular slot receiver. Don't cover him with your regular slot corner or you're going to get cooked. Peyton Wilson, I know fumble recoveries are fairly random, but he was Johnny on the spot there, so I like that. That's a good shout. Yeah, a bunch of dudes who made like one really good play.
Absolutely. Let's get to our 2 stars because we got a lot of those. 2-star guys: Nick Herbig, Calvin Austin, Pat Freiermuth, Jalen Warren, Broderick Jones, Dan Moore, Cordero Patterson, Darnell Washington, Ben Skowronek, and I put Calvin Austin in here twice. Good job, Chris. We're on fire. This is what happens when we're trying to speed through things because we're getting back from Cincinnati. But, all right, Alan, as you see, I have 2 offensive linemen here in the offensive tackles. One, Dan Moore, one, Broderick Jones. Both pretty much handled the edge rushers of the Bengals, which is, I think, the best part of their defense right now. And they also bullied some dudes down the line, down the field on some run plays. I saw Broderick Jones tossing DBs, 20 yards downfield. I was really impressed. This might have been the best overall week for the offensive line that I think they've had this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Trey Hendrickson, NFL sack leader, very quiet. Sam Hubbard, I'm not sure he was actually in the game. Like, was Sam Hubbard really there? I don't really remember. Great games from both tackles. Bunch of dudes on there that earned that praise. And some of them in, like, small workloads, too. Like, Jalen Warren wasn't out there a lot, but I felt like every time he touched the ball, it was a big play happening.
Dangerous.
Ben Skowronek with his blocking was really fun to watch. I wrote about Broderick Jones this week, and so I did rewatch the offense closely to look for some blocking stuff, and man, 15 kept popping up on there. Pat Freiermuth, just something about Cincinnati, man. He was awesome in this game. Calvin Austin, again, like, not a big sample, goes out in the second half with that concussion, but he made huge plays before he went out. So, yeah, good shouts here.
And, of course, Nick Herbig with his the strip sack fumble. Only reason I gave him 3 because I thought he still needs to get better against the run, but still, I'm not docking him too much for that. That's 2 stars. All right, with that being said, it's time to get to 3 stars here. I feel like it's really tough to put you in a position to guess all the 3-star guys, but we're going to do it anyways. All right, let me count it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 players.
Did you subtract the one name you put on there twice?
You know what's funny? I actually got to check. Okay, no, there's no doubles. There's no doubles this time. I apologize for the past doubles. All right, I got 7 players with 3-star grades. Go.
Russ, Najee.
Yes.
Frazier, McCormick.
Yes.
Samalo.
Yes. That's 5.
Watt.
Yes.
Heyward.
My man got him easy, no problem. That's why he's Alan Saunders, y'all. Don't do the finger guns. It's another 15 yards.
Dude, Cam Heyward.
Oh,
I just like gosh. I can't
oh
even
my
like
gosh.
Okay. I argued with a bunch of Steelers fans all summer. I'm like, y'all are dumb if you think this dude is old and washed. Like, this is a really good deal for the team to bring him back. He's good.
But even I didn't see this.
Yeah. I got to admit, like I can say, like, I told y'all, but like I didn't think they were gonna get like this version of Cam Heyward. The play on the goal line, the TFL, where I mean, it's just the thunder. He just swallowed Chase Brown. He was awesome. Had a sack. Had the tip on the interception. Was all over the place. I thought TJ was really good. Couple of the times that I talked about Burrow leaking to his side, I think maybe he would have liked to be in a little different position, but also he turns one of them into a strip sack. So that was a huge play for the momentum of the game. I think it really changed the complexion going forward. Not much else to say about Russ other than wow. I mean, like I did not know that they could, even with a defense playing as bad as I've seen an NFL defense play, basically. Like, I didn't think the Steelers could throw 414 yards on air. Like, I just didn't. That was impressive stuff from the offense, Russ and Najee. And then, man, them butt kickers in the middle, they're so fun to watch. They're just so fun to watch. I really enjoy it.
Mason McCormick, man. It's right. I can say about all three of them. Sayamalu had a really good game, but Mason McCormick and Zach
Frazier and Sayamalu on Najee's touchdown are just like,
just crush everything. And just like, and like, that's the thing is if they can get this group, they don't have to dominate like this every single week. But if they can get this group to play proficiently, above the bar, not getting bullied, if they bring this kind of intensity to the Browns next week, look out Cleveland, because you're gonna get a lot more movement at the line of scrimmage. You're gonna get more chances there for the Steelers run game to pop off, and also better protection for Russell Wilson. I think they were much more attentive in this game. And here's the thing about young offensive lines, Alan. When you get, and Sayamalu is the one guy who's not young, he's a vet, but everyone else, when you get games like this, it starts to feed into your psyche. It starts to feed into, okay, this is the chance for momentum. This is the chance for this group to start figuring out we can actually do this. We can go out there and dominate when you got two rookies at center and right guard, a second-year player that's younger than both of those guys at right tackle, Dan Moore in his fourth year of his rookie deal at left tackle. Now they can look around and say, oh, yeah, this is how we can play. And if we play like this consistently, it's going to be real tough for people to beat us. And I think that's what the Steelers saw from those guys. That's why I gave all three of the interior guys 3 stars. The outside guys got 2 stars because they did give up some pressures here and there, but nothing terrible. I think this was a really good sign for the Steelers to be able to play the way they want to play, even in a game where they did not play that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think they got to keep going. Like this was a get the bad taste out of your mouth game for that unit. Like, because I thought those guys in the interior especially struggled against the Browns. And I thought they really turned it around in a big way. It's the toughest thing for a young lineman is going to be consistent. But I think the Steelers have to hope that by the time they get into January, these guys aren't really going to be young linemen anymore. They're going to be battle tested and able to be leaned on.
That's what the Steelers are hoping for. We didn't get a chance to get into the Who to Target segment because we had so much fun talking about other stuff. We'll try to get into that tomorrow here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Alan, thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now site's account. And you can find my podcast, Steelers Afternoon Drive and Steelers Morning Rush, on the Steelers Now YouTube page or anywhere you find podcasts.
He's Alan Saunders. Alan, thanks so much for joining us. And thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, everywhere, at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers. Back here tomorrow after Tomlin's press conference, talking more about your Pittsburgh Steelers.